and thank you for joining us for this session about the Buddy program. My name is Daria Wertheim. I'm an Ecosystem Relations Manager here at Startup for Startup. And in this session, we will talk about the details of the Buddy program, what's in it for the company, and how eventually internal collaboration eventually helps the clients themselves. So feel free to talk to us in the chat, send us questions, either in the chat or the Q&A feature. We'll answer them as we go. So for this session, I'd like to welcome Michelle Lam, who is a Senior Enterprise Consultant, and Paula Galliano, who is an Enterprise Account Executive, both at Monday.com. Hi, ladies.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Let's just start with some background about yourself. Michelle, why don't you begin?
Yeah, great. So my name is Michelle, as Daria mentions. I'm on the enterprise team as a product consultant. I've been with Monday.com for almost a year and a half now, and it's definitely been a fun journey, starting when we were a really small company to exploding to many more employees since that time frame. And yeah, I'm excited to talk to you all about the great Buddy program that we have here at Monday.
And Paula, Michelle was actually your buddy when you joined the company.
Yeah, that's right. So my name's Paula. I joined a year ago, just over a year ago. Monday is definitely my favorite place that I've been so far. And I'm not just saying that because we're here today. And we're excited to talk to you about the Buddy program. And Michelle is my buddy, and then I became a subsequent buddy. So it's exciting to chat.
Great. So just to get everyone, to bring everyone some context. So we did talk about it, talked about it in the previous sessions, but we'll just mention that the company is at a hyper-growth stage, and especially the sales team. We can see that in 2019, when you both joined, Michelle, when you joined, we were like 33 salespeople, and when Paula joined, we were 50, and now we actually tripled. So that will be the context of this entire conversation, how the buddies actually take part of this growth. So Michelle, why don't you just give us some background about the Buddy program?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Buddy program started around the time that I started. So I actually had a buddy assigned on our team. He was actually in a different role than mine. But typically how the program works is we try to match people up with someone who's in the similar or the same role as a new person that is starting. We typically like to pair them up in a new hire's first week, just so that they have an additional person throughout their initial time with Monday.com. During their onboarding process, it's pretty critical, as they are just learning the company, the products, and the people within the organization. So a buddy is just an additional person to support them during the initial first few months of their time here.
Amazing. So it's important to say that not anyone can be a buddy, right? So let's talk a bit about the characteristics of a buddy. Paula, like, how was it for you, and how also did you perceive Michelle like in that way?
That's a good question. So just to Michelle's point earlier, it's especially critical in those first 1 to 3 months, but I do want to say that Michelle has continued to be my buddy. I can still reach out to her at any time. So it's not as though it has a official end date, but we really want to see people who are able to come out of training and have their first strong couple months, their first strong quarter, so that they are really setting a good example for a buddy who has just graduated from onboarding. We want them to feel like they're totally capable and they have this. We want someone who really is already engaged in the Monday culture. They really have good relationships with everybody that they can further introduce their buddy to, that they really want to advocate, like we say, for the company's culture. We really want to have the Monday DNA really fostered pretty early. And we want someone who's always looking for growth opportunities, always looking to be better than they were yesterday, and someone who really is what we call self-sufficient. But at Monday, everyone is pretty self-sufficient, but we also need to work together. So definitely someone who puts themselves out there in a helpful manner.
So I think you gave a good background into our next slide, because you mentioned a lot of aspects to this role, and we're just gonna dive into to each of them. So there's four, and the first one is operational. So what does it include? Michelle, tell us a bit, like, what does it mean, operational aspects?
Sure. So within a company of this size, where there's lots of different moving parts, there are a lot of like internal policies, some rules of engagement that we want to make sure that a new hire is up to speed on. We also want to make sure that they know where all the appropriate resources are. So I know that we're all working remote now, but back when we were in the office, we'd want to make sure that the new hire would know, for instance, like where to go to get supplies, or like where the printer is located. And walking them through their first time navigating through certain internal tools and systems that we use, like how to create a quote or how to navigate our CRM, right? So really walking them through the operational aspects of the job.
So when we're working from home, I guess the operational aspects are more about like how to find yourself within the platform, stuff like that.
Yeah, so like knowing where to go to find certain types of information, like for instance, if they have questions around like benefits, who to go to ask those questions, or let's say they need to, fill out some type of financial document for a client. Where do they go to get that information, and who can they reach out to within the company to help ask, to answer those types of questions?
So you're mentioning a good point here, and like in the preparation talk, you both mentioned that you came from other companies where this wasn't the case. So like, what if I didn't have a buddy? Like, Paula, can you just describe the experience in compared to other companies?
Yeah. So I'll say that in our first month at Monday, we do have HR onboarding. We do have an enablement team. So there definitely are people there, but it is like drinking from a fire hose. So your buddy is just that really safe person that will just help you just when you forgot everything that you learned in your first day or your first week. From the perspective of it changing from other companies I've been to, I've definitely had support at other companies, but I sort of felt like you always want to sparse out who you ask information from. Like you feel bad, you don't want to encroach on somebody's time. You feel like, okay, I've asked this person something today, I'll go to somebody else. And it just leads to this trepidation. You just don't really feel as super confident in it. You still feel like the new person who's being a burden, which and so when with Michelle, like my perception of her, to round out that other question, she was just super sharp, knew absolutely everybody. It was clear that everybody amongst the team really respected her. Anytime anyone talked about her, it was always in the best light. So I felt like, okay, good, I'm hitched to a really strong wagon. And it made a world of a difference. Like my level of trepidation as a new person, I think was gone by like day 2, instead of other companies where I still felt new for like a month.
For sure. I can share as well, like I'm not from the sales team, I'm from Startup for Startup, and we're a super small team. So a year ago, we still didn't have the buddy program. And when Matan, one of the team members, joined the team, like he was pretty much the first team member joining. And the manager, like she was supposed to be his buddy or just accompany him through his first week. She was actually sick at the first week. So he had to like jump in the deep water really, really quickly. And I'm sure like if he had someone to ask all the questions, it would have been much easier process for him. But this brings us to the next aspect, which is social. And we put in the slide from Monday's presentation about for buddies, like when we give the training for new buddies. So this is how it starts. And I thought, like, it's a really nice way to see how the company addresses it. Like, everybody needs a buddy. And one of the points we say here is that you're not their manager and you're not their mentor. So let's talk about a bit like about the relationship between you two. Like, how is it different than being someone's manager? Michelle?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I want to reiterate that, like, we're not in a position of like superiority, right? There isn't that like manager to rep relationship. Like, I'm really there as a person to support in any way that I can. So if that be in the work aspect, if my buddy needs help with a specific scenario on a specific deal, I'm there to help them in that way. But maybe they just want to talk completely unrelated to work. Maybe they just need some support in some other type of manner, or maybe they're feeling really stressed out by some aspects outside of work. Like, I want to be there to support them in any way possible, because it's a pretty grinding job in being in sales, right? You have very aggressive goals, and there's a lot that's coming at you at all times. So we've all been in scenarios where we might feel a little overwhelmed. So a buddy can be just someone that you can talk to, where you don't feel maybe judged by a manager or someone in your team. It's just someone that you can really throw ideas at and be a sounding board in all aspects of.
If I could also add there that on the social piece, to echo Michelle saying, it's not necessarily just the tactical stuff of your role, and it's not the operational stuff. It really is just how does someone feel on a given basis. And I was so grateful to have Michelle. I definitely remember having a glass of wine with her and kind of telling her, like, hey, here's the things that are sort of plaguing me right now. And she was so helpful in just being like, let's break it down, like, you got this. And that just put me in such a better mindset for that next day at work. And so we still have those chats, but coming from a different company, I think everyone at Monday is super positive. There's definitely something in the water here. And sometimes when you're having a little bit of challenges, you don't want to be that person that's like not the most happy that day, or you don't feel like you're absolutely crushing it like most people are here at Monday. Right. And so having a buddy is really important to contextualize your experience and say, oh my gosh, you're not alone. Just give it 2 seconds and you'll see, a month from now, you're not going to be feeling this way. And it's true. Everything that Michelle's always told me when she's told me to just be a little bit patient has always come true. So yeah. It was just nice to have that support.
I think it's a really good point. It's something that also happened to me. Like, when I first joined the company, not necessarily, it's not that I didn't feel positive, but it's that I felt like everything, like you're flooded with information, also in the onboarding process. And you feel like everything is so important. And I felt like there's no way I can keep track of everything. Like, you get updates from every department every day. And you want to know everything, but you can't. And for me, sharing that and consulting with my friends, my teammates about like, what should I do about it? Like, am I supposed to be reading everything? Even though, like, even if the HR is saying that everything is important, no, it's not always the case. Like, let's face it. So just having that someone tell me like, you're good, it can give a really good feeling. But let's dive into the professional process, because I think here you have a lot of insights. So we're gonna talk about some use cases first, but eventually, like, why is the company doing this? They wanna accelerate the ramp-up period for the new joiners, I assume, right?
Yeah, like if we think back to one of the beginning slides of just showing like how much we've grown over the last year, I think you mentioned that we hired 90 people since March 2020. So right. That's a really big number of people to start in a very short time frame. And, if you think about the new hires' relationships with their managers and people on our amazing training and enablement team, there just isn't enough support to be able to provide to each of those new hires. The first couple months is so instrumental that the purpose of having a buddy program is to give the new hires just an additional layer of support outside of their immediate manager and outside of the enablement team.
Right, and I think what's good about it is like you have like a win-win situation here, because you like on the one hand you're making the onboarding process for the new employees easier and faster, and then you also come to the senior employees and say, like, we trust you, we want you to take part in this process. We believe that you're professional enough to lead someone else, and I think that says a lot. Okay, so
Yeah.
do you want to add something?
No, this is perfect.
Okay, so let's dive into the use case. Paula, you want to tell us how it went for you when you first joined the company?
Yeah, so what I was just about to say was, Michelle brings up this point about that we are expected to ramp pretty quickly, and that there is just so much to contextualize after your onboarding. And so that's just what I was going to say here. So this was a prime example of, I graduated training. It was like 3 or 4 weeks after I started, and we had an SDR, who gave me a hot lead and was like, they're ready to sign right now. And it was just sort of passed me. And sure, I learned, where we go for all these different things coming out of training, but to put it into practice was really over my head at first. And Monday's procurement process is a little bit different than other companies that I've been at. So,
yeah. So what are we looking at here?
Yeah. So I was hit with this email, and this is legitimately a quarter of what they were asking for. And the urgency was pretty high. It wasn't like, hey, we're working through procurement and we're ready, we'll evaluate the platform as we go. It was like, this needs to be done yesterday. So I sort of go to my buddy and I was like, I hate to ask you to really help me with a ton of work here, but I really have no concept of where everything is.
Like, where do I even begin?
Exactly. Where do I even begin it? And Monday is amazing for having really strong, transparency. And that's not just a plug. It really is. Like, we do have everything all in one place, but when you don't even know what you're looking for, it can be pretty overwhelming. So Michelle spent a significant amount of time. I think it might have been like an hour and a half, just going through each and everything with me. Not just for the sake of, just that one deal, but just so that I would have that comprehensive one-to-one session for my future deals. So since that session, I've always just felt like I could sort of breeze through, all procurement questions.
So what are we looking at here, just so everyone understands?
So at Monday, we create document repositories that can be really helpful. So just where do you need to go when you need to find information? And this is a very powerful board that we have. It's called Documents for Sales. So anything that relates to financial documentation, you can find here. You'll be able to find any legal documentation. You'll be able to find any privacy documentation as well, and security. So everything is on this board, but this board has several hundreds of items, of rows. So Michelle really helped me click into each one, make sure that I read it, make sure that I understand the comments. A lot of times we have different thresholds for procurement processes. So in legal and security, we can't always say yes to everything due to bandwidth. So there's a lot of nuance in between each and every document. Mm-hmm. So procurement, while it might be pretty dry as a subject, it's also critical for you to actually get your deal done. So just helping me break down this process so that we could get it done in an hour and a half really sped up things. So really grateful for her. I think my first week on graduating. So
Michelle, how does it look from your end?
So aside from the tactical aspects of learning the job initially, there's also a piece of learning how to position the products. because Monday.com, it's very sophisticated. There's a lot of things that you can do in the platform. And new hires coming fresh out of training, they have all this information in their head, and they're just so excited to, finally start speaking to and working with clients that, sometimes in those initial calls, they have a tendency to, for lack of a better term, like word vomit. And they just want to throw all the information and just show the clients just how much they know about the products. And sometimes it's a buddy's responsibility to kind of help rein them in and help them understand, well, what is it really that the client's trying to accomplish in the platform? What are the pain points that they're trying to solve for? And then how can we figure out the right features to show them in a way that's going to resonate, right?
But,
so go ahead.
Like you're saying here, something that can be problematic eventually. Like if someone, like you're talking about a situation where a new employee starts to talk with a potential client and like doesn't stop talking, or like maybe he wants to show like how much he already knows. But we can lose a client eventually like that. Maybe he is really annoying and like the potential client doesn't want to talk to him. So what do you do in this case?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it depends. Like there's a few different scenarios. One scenario might be a buddy invites us on a call with them, and they introduce us as maybe like a more senior member of the team or someone who's very familiar with this particular client's industry or use case. And in that case, maybe we might step in if we realize that the client might not have a chance to really get their thoughts heard, or maybe we're not answering their questions as thoroughly. That could be a situation where I might step in and maybe ask a question to allow the client a chance to speak, or maybe I have a better way of, explaining a certain feature that might resonate with the client.
Mm-hmm. And what if so you're actually deciding if they should introduce you or not? How does it work?
No, absolutely not. So I always like to tell my buddies that it's completely up to them. So whatever they feel comfortable with, whether they want to just have me silently shadowing, or maybe I can like send them messages during the call, or if they want to introduce me and have me step in, if they get stuck at any point, then I'm happy to do whatever, however they think that I can help.
So the majority of the process is still on them, but you're there like to just support when they need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd also add that the shadowing sort of also goes both ways. So Michelle was awesome when she came on a call. Sometimes I might introduce her just so that she could step in if I was really tripping over my shoes. Other times she might sort of be next to me and really giving me some comments or some coaching from the sidelines. But also when we join at Monday, we're really encouraged to shadow successful reps on their calls. And at the time we were in the office and Michelle was right next to me, and she was such a delight to listen to her calls all the time. And I would literally scribe out everything that she was saying on her demo flows or on her exploratory calls, because she just had a really strong way of positioning a feature, like she said, or she just had a really strong flow or really strong questions that were really pertinent to our product. And I learned that way too. So from her coaching me, but also just her letting me just sort of be a fly on the wall a lot of the times is where I got a lot of the value as well.
Yeah, so that's also a good point, like not just allowing the senior employee to support you, but also be there to learn from top performers in the company, how they do and get their practice, like is a really good point. And the fourth aspect, I think, is the most interesting one, because I haven't thought of this program before as something cultural or an expression of the company's culture. And through our conversations, I really understood that it is. So let's just talk about like how actually this program brings the company's culture, brings it into like expression. So Michelle, you were appointed as a buddy pretty early on, right?
Yeah, I think I was like 4 months in when Paolo became my buddy.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I see it is like the company is telling you, like, we trust you with our values. We believe that you understand them well enough to bring them into other people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely how I perceived it, and I definitely took it as like an honor, being trusted with this responsibility of helping a new hire ramp up quickly, and also being tasked with teaching them about our culture and our company, and trusting that I will be able to help my buddy with their eventual success.
Mm-hmm. And okay, we say here, like, we talk here about a lot about how it encourages teamwork and reduces friction between departments. So how does it do it, actually, Paula?
Yeah, so I think to Michelle's point where she says you're really invested in your buddy's success and you're rooting for them. I am also equally invested in my buddy's success, and we all sort of refer to each other as buddy, whether you are the person that was buddied or you also have a subsequent buddy of your own. So we in the office, when we were there, we would have these giant TV screens that really light up any time that you close a deal. So everyone's really aware of who's doing what. Now in the remote environment, we have a Slack channel that's pretty automatic. But really what this encourages is everyone's always rooting for everybody's success, but we know that we don't get there alone. And so in the office, people would just go up to someone and be like, hey, I really need help with this. And Michelle could be like, you know who you should ask? You should ask so-and-so, because they just had a very similar use case with the client. And then the buddy gets really familiar with that. And then the buddy learns something. And so then the next time that someone has something that they pose to the broader group of, hey, has anyone had a client experience this pain point or is trying to tackle this problem? Everyone is just so excited to jump in and give their 2 cents or give their experience, because they know that it comes back to them tenfold. That's going to be really critical for their deal. So I think now it exists in Slack. It used to exist more in the office, but everybody's just constantly like championing one another, and it's such a positive environment. And I think to the point about no friction between departments, I think we all feel really supported and celebrated in our accomplishments. So that just adds to this level of how you feel when you show up to work every day. And in previous organizations, I know that sometimes there can be some frictions, but really everyone's just here to help, because that's the mentality that's been given to you since day one. Like the DNA that the buddy instills from you, like, this is who we are at Monday. This is how we treat one another. This is how we respect one another. And you've had someone kind of in your ear the whole time, like, this is how we behave. So
Yeah,
I think that's pretty cool.
I think, like, from what I know, the sales world can be very competitive. Usually it's a very competitive environment. Maybe you fight for leads with other teammates or other companies as well, but like you're in a competition, even in front of yourself, but you're in constant competition. And I think this is a great way to reduce that. Like we discussed about, like, I try to understand how do we measure this program, because we measure everything at Monday. Like we have tons of screens at the office. Like everywhere you look, there are screens with different metrics. So you understand where you're going and if you're going in the right direction. So and then you're suddenly telling me, like, we don't measure the body program. And it sounded weird, but then I understood that like the fact that we don't have KPIs for this is what allows the like the team to be really invested in each other's success. Like Michelle, you would feel really good if Paula would succeed now in a deal, because you kind of had a part of it. Like you helped her get to where she is today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. think that first bullet point there, I definitely want to emphasize and underline, even though there isn't a hard KPI, a quantifiable KPI that we're measured on in this buddy program, I still feel, a sense of, accomplishment and being really proud when my buddy or any of my buddies succeed or do something really well, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So we kind of mentioned a lot of these before, but let's be clear, like Monday isn't doing it just because like we're a nice company and we like everyone to have buddies. Like there is something to get out of it. And the title of this conversation is how eventually clients benefit from internal collaboration, right? So what's in it for Monday eventually? How does it see it? Like how does it help us reach our end goals?
I think Paolo alluded to it a little bit on the last slide of just like having this sense of teamwork that expands outside of the sales team. It really reaches all of the departments within Monday. So everything from our customer support team, our customer experience team, finance, our product team, like we are really all trying to work towards a common goal here. And that isn't always the case in some companies. Like I could feel comfortable reaching out to anyone in any department for any question that I have, and I don't feel like I'm being brushed off when I have these types of questions, right? Everyone is so willing to help and actually like enthusiastic to help. So there's that sense of camaraderie, that sense of collaboration, and it's all in the best interest of a client.
Right. And Paula, you mentioned before that like in other industries or companies, maybe you close a deal in like 3 to 4 months. And here you're expected to move much faster.
Yeah. So I think something that's really interesting about Monday is that one, we don't really have this dog eat dog culture, which can exist in some organizations on the sales side, but we really are expected to close really fast. And Michelle and I are both on the enterprise team, and we're also on monthly quotas. So anytime that I speak to anyone about a monthly quota and they are familiar with the enterprise space, their jaws kind of drop because they're like, enterprise monthly quota, like, we're on H1 or H2 quotas.
That's it. So give us some context. How is it usually with enterprises?
It can be quarterly, which is probably the most common, but some companies also have just first half of the year, back half of the year. So, you have an entire 6 months to really hit your numbers that you're really being scrutinized on.
Because
but at Monday, it's monthly.
Enterprise is usually it's a much bigger account, right? So usually these are deals that take much more time to close.
Exactly. And so, yeah, we're dealing with companies that are, Michelle and I specifically deal with companies that are 1,500 employees and more. We also have an amazing mid-market team that handles everyone. But I want to tie it back to the first point about employee motivation and retention. So if your headspace is just not in the right frame of mind, you're just going to be looking pretty down and not feeling like, hey, I can hit this monthly quota. But having your buddy really be by your side, one, for morale, but two, to really help navigate and position the product, like Michelle was talking about earlier, like really making sure that you hit those demos right the first time and have those right follow-ups and resources to get you the information you need from product or from legal or from security. Those are like really critical to you actually getting to that yes a lot sooner so that you can hit those monthly cadences. So I think that it's not, to your point earlier, it's not all just like fluffy and yay, we're all happy. It's like you need to feel like you're in a good headspace so that you can get things done to hit your numbers.
So that brings me to some challenges, because you've been talking about like how hard it is to close a deal, and it's even harder when you have to do it on a monthly basis. So how can you do it while you're expected to be someone else's buddy? Like Michelle, you already had 6 buddies, am I right?
Yeah, it's a lot of buddies.
Yeah,
and a lot of people to support.
And as we grow, there are much more people to support, and talking to more people from the sales team. Someone even mentioned this can take 15 to up to 20% of his day-to-day job at some periods. So how do you handle that load?
I think it's all about balance and open lines of communication. You know, if there are instances in which maybe the person assigned as the buddy is overloaded with their own work, and you know their buddy is reaching out for help or support, you know, having that open dialogue, letting them know, hey, you know, I'm busy with XYZ right now. Why don't we set up some time later in the week? Or maybe introducing them to someone else on the team who might have some more free time to work with that person. So there's that social aspects of the buddy program where you're connecting them with other people in the company that can help them towards, you know, whatever it is that they need help with. But then it also opens up other areas of possible development for the person that is assigned as the buddy. Maybe there can be room to help with like time management skills or prioritization skills, right? So there are some challenges with it, but there, you know, for the most part, can always be solutions to those as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think another challenge that we mentioned here is that, especially in a company that keeps growing, is that new roles are created all the time. Like not always you have someone that has done your position before, right? Maybe you're walking into a brand new territory.
Yeah, this actually is a point that I raised because we actually just started building out a pre-sales engineering team, and we hired the first one, I think 1 or 2 months ago. And I was assigned as that person's buddy, and we had never obviously had a pre-sales engineer role on the team. So a lot of my time spent with my buddies normally is kind of talking about the day-to-day, like what my schedule typically looks like, how I go about my day, what are the processes that I follow and best practices that I follow. But when there's a new role that, you know, hasn't existed before, some of those questions that I get asked, I might not be able to really answer in a very helpful or meaningful way. So those are things that we will obviously have to work through as we continue to expand and continue to hire for roles that don't exist today.
Right. And this, I think it brings me to the final slide here. Because what you mentioned here, it's a challenge, but also I see it as a way to really make the employees a part of the company's growth, because both of you are now someone else's buddies, and you're not just standing aside and seeing how the department grows from 50 to 150, but you're actually taking part of these new hires, and even like you said, like even deciding how the new roles would look like and what they should do. So this is also a growth opportunity for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that to talk about how it always extends to a broader audience, it's not just your specific buddy, but when you are able to really make your claim as far as, hey, I'm here for help, you know, you start to sort of see that people start to go to you for things, and of course that leads to, you know, some recognition in a way. Like Michelle has led, she now has like this entire like time management course that she leads at Monday for, you know, everybody. It's not just necessarily salespeople, and I think that that's one of the amazing value adds that she has to the company. But it definitely just allows you to have your ear to the ground so that you can really give your feedback on what might benefit your team or the broader group. So it's cool.
So let's end with like some tips, or how do you see, like if someone wants to implement a new program in their company, what are the main takeaways? What are the main aspects they should take into consideration when starting this program?
I think the most important thing really with having like a really successful program like this, it starts with the people that you hire. Paula mentioned earlier on that there's something in the water, and I think it's really true. It really has to do with, it starts with recruiting, making sure that we find people who are very genuine, who are very team oriented, who don't have, these egos where they are only out for their own success. They are really, truly invested in the company's overall goals and initiatives and want to truly see the other people around them succeed. And I think if you don't have the right people, then you can spend all this time developing a buddy program. It's just not going to work well if you don't have the people who are motivated and want to participate and see it succeed.
Right. Paula?
I'll also just give a plug to our recruiters as well to piggyback off Michelle's point. The company was really clear in what our values are, and among one of them is empathy. So when I was looking and Monday's opportunity came across my desk, it jumped out at the page as something completely different than maybe any other opportunity I was looking at, because it really felt like it had this human teamwork. Like the fact that a company uses empathy as one of their main values, I was just immediately thinking I have to work there because that really feels like someone who's truly, truly caring about their employees. And so then, yeah, to Michelle's point, if you're a lone wolf who's really only out for your own success, like this just might not be the place where you thrive. But for all of us, even though, I mean, Michelle said it in a previous call, we all come from different backgrounds, but we really all have this teamwork mentality. So I think that that's really helped.
And I think it's also important to stress that it works for us in our culture, in our values, but this program can totally be valid for other companies with other values. Like, I think it's not just companies maybe who, like you said, empathy, but like there are a lot of values, maybe like success or winning huge deals is like a top value for other companies. And this can also be valid in other companies as long as you communicate your values in a clear way and you make sure your employees understand them. And once you have that connection between the two, then anyone can implement this program in their company.
Absolutely.
Okay. So thank you very much, Michelle and Paula.
Of course.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.